So I just wondered what your initial reaction really was to the idea of your memoir being turned into a film and being in the hands of Joel Edgerton.
I mean, so like whenever I was first selling the book, I heard from people in the industry that were like, oh, it's a gay book, so it's not going to sell. That's a thing that people in 2016 were still saying, and they still say it today. Even though we have these incredibly successful books like A Little Life, or my friend Garth Greenwell's What Belongs to You, which is a beautiful piece of fiction. And you know, there are all these success stories, but people still say, oh, it's a gay book, it's not going to sell. So I had no expectation for this to be like a mainstream topic. And I guess my goal in the book was like to really honor other survivor stories. And whenever Joel approached me, I'd seen him doing press for Loving, which was that movie about interracial marriage. And he'd actually said in all of his interviews, like, oh, we should really be talking about marriage equality as well. And so I was like, oh, a good ally. And then he wanted to meet with other survivors, and I began to see how this project could become something much more mainstream. And when he pulled in Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe and Lucas Hedges and like then Xavier Dolan, Troye Sivan and Cherry Jones, I was like, oh wow, we can really we can get a lot of different fan bases to come out. And we rather intentionally, I mean, I didn't write the screenplay, but I helped him with it quite a bit. We rather intentionally wanted to make it a sort of very incredibly accurate document of conversion therapy, but also something that people could enter at different stages of acceptance for LGBTQ people, like parents who maybe messed up in the past, or people who have an opportunity to do the right thing next. You know, Joel Edgerton, who directed it, he often says he's not really interested in the bad that people have done, but what they're going to do next. And I think that, you know, people make mistakes, and some of them are so terrible that, you know, people committed suicide, for example, with John Smith, the real life counterpart to Victor Sykes in the film, The Counselor of Love in Action. Some people have to live with that, and that's incredibly difficult. But then, even with that, you can make a decision that may not correct it, but it helps us move forward as a movement. And John Smith in real life has done that. For example, he's now married to a man, of course, living in Paris, Texas, making furniture. But he's also, you know, he's going to be at the screening tonight, and he donated all of his documents to the Smithsonian. He's doing all the right steps, and I think that that's a really important message, especially as we live in a country where so many people voted for Trump. It's like, okay, you really messed up. Now, like, we have another election. Let's do something else. Now that you know that they want to kill us. I mean, I've been talking about this all day because I'm really wrecked by it. But the trans news that came out yesterday about the administration trying to narrowly define gender and therefore erase trans people from our very society, it's scary times. And I think anyone who knows an LGBTQ person and still and like thinks that they love them and they still support Trump, I think they need to reconsider that.
Well, sitting watching the film, I was thinking, well, I'd really like there to be a White House screening, unlikely as it is, but wouldn't it be nice just to tweet and
well,
say I challenge you to put it on?
I've been tweeting Pence quite a bit. It's my side job. But, you know, in all fairness, I do, like, this is how pragmatic I am about this issue. I want to end it once and for all. I want to make sure that conversion therapy is a topic of conversation in every household so that they know that it exists, first of all. But if Mike Pence said to me, I'll sit down and talk with you, I would do it. Because I'm so pragmatic. I'm like, I know y'all are monsters, but if you really want to talk, I'll tell you everything. So that's my challenge. Because of course, he's actually watching Hey You Guys.
Yeah.
Because we all know. We all know he's not.
And
totally straight.
What kind of feedback have you had from people directly, either that have read your book or that have seen the film, and particularly people who maybe, you know, their minds have opened a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the overwhelming amount of feedback that I've gotten is from survivors or people who've grown up in fundamentalist families. But I've also gotten things outside of the country, like I got this email from someone in Guatemala who said that he was going to kill himself, and he saw the trailer and it stopped him from killing himself. And that's like really heavy to read, but also, you know, whatever helps is amazing to me. I've received emails from people who claim to be counselors and psychotherapists who still support conversion therapy, and they're very mad at me. And I invited the last guy that did that to me, sent me this crazy long email. It's always the longest email you'll ever get. And I was like, oh, do you want to like talk about this publicly? Because I would love to have a debate. And he didn't, because they're cowards. That's the thing. Because they know that whenever it airs out in public, it's not going to stand up. Like, it's crazy. I mean, put us on Fox News. I don't care. I'll have a debate. But I'll be the one that wins. Period. Because the truth is the truth. You know? But I wish I got more hate mail.
And yeah, going back to
successful if you get hate
yes.
mail.
Going back to the film and kind of those preparing for it, what kind of contact did you have with Lucas Hedges? Did he have some questions for you as he prepared?
Lucas was wonderful. Yeah, he Joel wanted us to meet before he agreed to bring on Lucas, and before Lucas agreed, because they just wanted to see if it was the right fit. And Lucas had read my book like multiple times and underlined every passage, which is all I needed. I was like, oh, okay. But also he shared with me some of his own experiences. He talked about that in Vulture and I think it was New York Mag. But it was like he was just always the right person for it. And yeah, he understood, even though he hadn't gone through any of my experiences, he understood the shame around not fitting in or feeling like you're crazy or like being, you know, always paranoid about how people perceive you. So at no point did I ever question whether or not he was the right person for it. And I'd seen him in Manchester by the Sea like 2 weeks before. And I was like, oh, he was actually the only thing I liked in that movie. So it was easy for me to like really want him to get on board.
Yeah, he was brilliant, and it was and so different in the
yeah,
he's
exactly.
Really versatile.
He's been in every like good movie.
Yes. And one thing that struck me both watching the film and then reading the book was I'd sort of gone in expecting really the parents to be kind of painted as the villains, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. You know, it really feels like they're doing the right thing, and it's coming.
Yeah.
And what they see is the right thing, and it's coming from kind of a place of love and their faith as well. Could you just talk a little?
Yeah, I mean,
about
I think that in some ways it's more terrifying that people who love each other do things that are really harmful to each other. Like that's the real, like, gut punch, you know, that you get out of this story and out of a lot of human stories. I don't think, as Joel often says, I don't think people wake up and think like, I want to torture a child right now. There aren't many. There are a few. They're all in power right now. But you know, I don't think most people operate that way, unless they're like filled with ideology and a bunch of BS. But yeah, I wanted to make sure our arrow was aimed at the bigotry itself, the systemic bigotry that exists in these communities that are often passed down from higher up church leaders. So, you know, I think the more power that people have, the more accountable they need to be. And so you yell at those people and you try to talk to the people that don't have as much power. And so I never wanted, I just don't think it would be helpful culturally for me to be like, oh, my parents were villains and this is a simple fable about someone who doesn't fit in, and we're watching like Edward Scissorhands, which is a great movie, but we're not watching a fable, right? We're watching like someone who's navigating, a lot of people, this whole family that's navigating a system that wants to destroy them. And you know, I always say this, my mom's here in the hotel and she's going to the screening tonight. She's such a supporter. But you know, when I came out, she had to come out too. She had to come out as a supporter and someone who her whole community could turn against because of her support. And that's incredibly hard. And I think in some ways it's much harder because being gay and knowing that you're gay, like, you know, there's like a crash course collision at some point where you're going to either walk away or you're going to, you know, sublimate all of your feelings. And I decided to walk away and my mom helped me do that. But for her, she's someone who didn't have to, you know, but she had the courage to speak up. And I think that those people should be commended as well. She made a terrible mistake. It could have killed me, and she is not unaware of that. She apologizes like every day of her life. But now she's making the right steps. And I think that if we're going to move forward as a country, especially post-Trump, which will be soon, I hope, we're going to have to say, you really messed up, but here's what you can do to help me.
And on kind of a lighter note, what did they make of being played by these by Oscar winners? Russell Crowe and
I know.
Kidman.
Well, Dad is like, Russell showed up at Dad's church randomly and like didn't tell anyone, and like came to the sermon while my dad was delivering it, and then they hung out, and like Dad was texting Russell Crowe for like a month, which was a very surreal period for all of us. So I think Dad was very flattered being played by the gladiator, and my mom, of course, is just like, she believes she is Nicole Kidman, I think now, and if anything, Nicole actually plays down the look and the way my mom acts.
The nails, they're very impressive in the film. So
Mom didn't like the nails in that film. She also said that they used a few too many Walmart tops. That was her words. I was like, Mom, everyone's gonna hate you that lives in that town, because probably many people shop at Walmart. But she's always had like this vision of herself, and she treats her look very seriously, and it's very like, it's funny, like my mom is so much more gay than I am. Like she's almost like, this is in no way talking about like her appearance, because I think she looks beautiful and pulls it off all the time, but she's got like a drag quality to her. Like it's always like this sort of exaggerated amazingness.
I think with Dolly Parton.
Yeah, she hates that.
But yes.
She thinks she's better than Dolly.
Well.
Which is, whatever. The gays are going to attack us if we say that. I'm sorry. I love Dolly.
And what about being on set? How much were you on set? And you're actually on camera as well.
Yeah.
Aren't you?
I was like briefly in it as one of the like dead-eyed members of Love in Action who'd been there for a long time. It was a very scary like alternate reality moment. But I was on set 4 times, I think, 3 or 4 times, and Mom was on set for 2 of them. It's all like a blur now.
Because it looks very authentically recreated from how you describe it in the book.
Totally. Yeah. It's like when I walked on set, it was just like, oh God, I'm back. You know, and it was shot on location at a church that was set up to be exactly like Love in Action, and so that was, you know, there were posters on the wall that were like, you're gonna die of AIDS like instantly if you're gay, and it's very disturbing to see that kind of mentality displayed once again, and in 2018, even though things haven't changed that much, but it was like, holy shit, I'm back in that world.
Is that a church that's still open and running?
Love in Action?
No, where you filmed.
Yeah, but it was...
Did they know what you were filming?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to know. It would have been like illegal until they know. But there were some interesting moments in the production. Like, I spoke with the pastor there, the real pastor, and he was very affirming and like cool, and was trying to change the congregation to be more accepting. So I'm sure there were like a few people who didn't exactly love it. And also it's kind of weird to be like, if you were affirming, to be like, oh, we were the church that was like the evil church in that movie. It's a strange thing to brag about, but we were really grateful. I mean, it was a great space and very beautiful, and in a like kind of creepy way, like the stained glass window in the back was very gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a line in your author's note, and then it's also one that Lucas Hedges speaks in the film. I wish none of this had ever happened, and sometimes I thank God that it didn't.
Yeah.
And if you could maybe expand on that, and why in some ways you're kind of grateful to have had the experience as bad.
I think it's kind of the message. It's a contradiction in some ways, right? But I write that way, like that's how my brain thinks. I don't subscribe to the notion that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because sometimes it kills you and you don't get stronger, especially with a lot of people who survive conversion therapy. They live with that weight for the rest of their lives, and that doesn't necessarily make you stronger. But that being said, I do believe, and maybe this is a little too mystical, but I have strange mystical ideas anyway, I believe that I was a witness to that torture for a reason, and I don't necessarily know if it's fate or whatever, but everything is too like perfectly lined up in that way. So I don't know if it's just my brain making that pattern, but I don't really care. I think that it's important to remember that in every moment, whether on a small scale in your own life or a larger scale, as in what's happening with the administration right now and how we could truly have like a genocide, it's important to remember that you're a witness to something in history and that you need to record it faithfully and accurately. And that, I think a lot of us feel guilt about not doing enough. And I think we should do more. You know, we should march on the streets, we should vote, definitely vote, and get other people to vote. But sometimes what you're placed to do in certain situations is be an accurate witness to what's happening and record it for history.
And at the end, there are some very sobering statistics about 36 states where conversion therapy on minors is still legal. And the number
in all
of people,
states, it's legal for a religious organization to do conversion therapy and charge for it.
So that's not been banned anyway. No.
It's an impossible thing to accomplish, actually, I think, right now. Our main goal, yes, like state by state, let's try to get as many bans as we can, contact your, representatives, tell them this is what you're interested in. But, in many ways, that's like the low bar. I think the boy erased hopes that everyone knows these statistics, that 700,000 people have been in conversion therapy and 20,000 are currently affected by it in the US alone. So we want that to be just something everyone knows, so that kind of knowledge will at least expand the possibility for change. But then also to take a hard look at the bigotry that exists in these places where conversion therapy thrives. And hopefully, if no one does anything other than educate the people around queer kids to say, hey, I guess that's probably torture, I'm not going to torture this person. If we can just get them to do that, then great, that's the first step. And then later we'll worry about what acceptance looks like in those families, because I'm just trying to make sure that those emails that I get that are I'm dying right now don't continue to flood my inbox. I want that to go away. And it's hard not to think in those terms whenever you get those every day. And it's a bigger thing than people realize. It's happening all over.
Yeah, exactly. That would be for people that see this film in other countries that maybe didn't even realize that it was.
It's happening in their countries too. When I went on a European tour for my book, people would come up to me and say, I went to one of these, there's 2 in this city, even in Germany, and Germany has a history, but in all sorts of different countries, people were coming up to me, and it was very surprising. I was like, oh, y'all are supposed to be way better than us right now. But it turns out, this sort of thing can thrive anywhere. It's really scary. It's like a virus.
Garrard Conley, thanks very much.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!